to welcome you all to Etreux Military Cemetery. I would like to pay a special welcome to the Irish Ambassador to France, Mr. Rory Montgomery, who is trying to be with us today, and also to Mike Donoghue and Paul Newsom, who travelled from Canada to be with us. So, to begin proceedings, I would like Mr. Montgomery to make a few comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liam. Bonjour à tous et à toutes. Pour moi, c'est un grand honneur d'être ici à Etreux pour commémorer aujourd'hui le centenaire exact de la bataille dans laquelle les soldats des Munster Fusiliers ont fait un si grand sacrifice. I shall, I think, continue in English for the majority of those here. I have to say, it is an enormous honour for me to be here. It's a special day for me for a couple of reasons. The first is that it is my last day of duty as the Irish Ambassador to France. Tomorrow I go back to Dublin, but I was determined to remain here because one of the themes which has marked my period in France has been the beginnings of commemoration of World War I and of particularly of the Irish role within it. And this is important for me because it is the first Irish commemoration of what will be many commemorations over the coming period, which occurs in France on the exact day, on the exact centenary of what happened here 100 years ago. I'm proud to say that last month in July, a contingent from our defence forces were among representatives of 68 countries who took part in the annual French Bastille Day procession down the Champs-Élysées, and that was a great honour that was extended to us and to all countries which were involved in one way or another in the First World War. And I was very proud to see them march down the Champs-Élysées and march past the President of France and his ministers at the reviewing stand, along with soldiers from so many other countries, from Europe, from America, from Canada, from Africa, from Australia, New Zealand, and elsewhere. I think in Ireland, as you all know, and this is something to which we all owe you in the Royal Munster Fusiliers Association a great deal of gratitude. I think in Ireland over the last 20-25 years, there has been a real maturing in our approach as a country to the experiences of that period. And I think you now see, as was underlined, for example, when the President Higgins, inaugurated the Cross of Sacrifice in Glasnevin, you see, I think, a really changed attitude to this particular aspect of our history. It's not anymore, I think, necessary to fight or refight the battles over who was right and who was wrong, though I think there are still some who like to do so. Nor do we have to debate what people's motives were and their reasons for taking part. But I think what we can all agree is that these men, and indeed some women, mostly men from Ireland and from many other countries, paid an appallingly high price for the errors of their political leaders and for the errors of the societies within which they lived. And I think we can all remember, as I say, without contention, with pride, we can remember their sacrifice. We can only begin to guess at the extent of the loss they must have felt. I was very much struck at an event 2 months ago with the Royal Dublin Fusiliers Association down by the Marne at La Ferté-sous-Jouarre. I met a woman from Scotland whose father was born on the 1st of September, 1914, just 5 days after his own father, her grandfather, had been killed in the retreat from Mons. So that's only one small example of a family which paid a huge price. And there are literally millions of families all over the world, and including in Ireland, which were sadly affected and in some cases broken by this terrible cataclysm which enveloped Western Europe and indeed much of the rest of the world. So I really want to say that I think, over the last, I'm proud of the way in which the commemoration of the war, without seeking to glorify the war, and as I say, without seeking to refight the battle of the past, has been able to embrace people from Ireland, from every tradition, and it's been able to embrace the commonality of people of the rest of our islands and the Irish. It's made us aware of the common solidarity among all Europeans, no matter what side they fought on in the war. So I also wanted to say that two things about this particular engagement. This was a particularly fierce engagement. The actions of the Royal Munster Fusiliers were particularly heroic, and at the end of the war, not long after the war, Marshal Foch, of course, wrote some very famous words about the courage and gallantry of Irish soldiers in the war, and I think this was perhaps one of the very first demonstrations of that courage. Secondly, I also wanted to pay particular tribute to the families in Iran, where I think you're going later today, if I'm correct, who sheltered a number of Irish and other soldiers who were cut off from their comrades and who unfortunately were discovered some months later and executed. But those families too paid a severe price. Et donc il faut saluer les efforts des familles d'Iran en tout ce qu'ils ont fait pour les soldats irlandais et britanniques en leur offrant de l'abri et de la sécurité, malgré si finalement les efforts étaient en vain. Et I congratulate the association for keeping the memory of that particular chapter of this event alive. So it's only in conclusion I would like to say once again how honoured I am to have been invited, how I am proud to be here on behalf of the Irish government, of the Irish state, to recognise not only what was done 100 years ago, but also to recognise what the Royal Munster Fusiliers Association and all those interested in the history of Irish involvement in the war have done over the last 20 odd years, and to thank you very much indeed for your presence here today also. And I also want to thank our military colleagues who arrived in the middle of my speech but without unduly affecting it or taking me away. And so it's a real honour and pleasure to be here, as I say. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today in this beautiful cemetery to pay tribute to the officers, non-commissioned officers and men of the 2nd Battalion Royal Munster Fusiliers who fought, died or were captured in the engagement that we call Etreux on the 27th of August 1914, 100 years ago today. As part of the rearguard of the army in its retreat from Mons, the battalion was holding a line from Chapeau Rouge to Berjou, north of where we now stand, when it was hit by an overwhelming enemy force and was compelled to fall back. The message from headquarters to retire was late in arriving, and upon this incident, the tragedy of the day turned. From the villages of Chapeau Rouge, Fémy, Berjou and Noisy, the battalion carried on a fighting retreat that brought them here, to the orchard where they made their final stand, their line of retreat having been cut off. In this place, the remnants of the battalion fought on and made several attempts to break through the overwhelming forces that surrounded them. Resisting with ammunition taken from the dead and wounded, there could only be one ending, and the unhappy duty fell to Lieutenant Gower to surrender the remnant. In the words of historian Tom Johnson, quote, "This day at Etreux, something more prized was won, the respect of a brave enemy. A German officer said of them, men have never fought so brave." At 21:15, the end came in the orchard when 4 officers and 240 Fusiliers, many of them wounded, stood up and surrendered. In the words of the Secretary of the Battle Exploits Memorial Committee, in dealing with a request to erect this magnificent memorial to the battalion, said, "The action is likely to become the classical example of the performance of its function by a rearguard." That the battalion had managed to hold off some 6 enemy battalions for over 12 hours contributed in no small measure to the successful retreat of its division and of the army. It would be unjust to single out individuals for mention on an occasion like this. It is far more appropriate to remember all members of the battalion as we gather here in this now peaceful place, utterly different from what it would have been 100 years ago today. Spectator agendo. Never was a motto more fitting to the courage of the men who fought and died here. Not for fame or reward, not for place or for rank, not lured by ambition or goaded by necessity, but in simple obedience to duty as they understood it. These men suffered all, sacrificed all, dared all, and died. They shall not grow old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite His Excellency to lay a reed on behalf of the Irish Government. Copy read will now be laid on behalf of the Munster Fusiliers Association. This reed is being laid on behalf of the town of Etreux. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll invite anybody else who wants to lay a reed to come forward. This reed was laid on behalf of 10th Essex.
Hello Craig, nice to see you.
Fine grips, yes. But it was totally left out. So